So that brings me to the issue of agendas, and on the screen now you will see an example of the default agenda which I continue to see in organisations inside and outside the public sector, in the UK and on my business travels abroad. Yes, the items are made up. What you see on screen I've not lifted from one particular meeting, but I would be astonished if you didn't look at that list and think, I've been to meetings like that. So what's wrong with that agenda? I know I've only got a few minutes in this presentation, but let's rattle through some of the major problems. Well, the first thing to say is that the first 3 items on that agenda don't actually move any business forward at all. They are going through the motions. Apologies? Why do we need to know who's not there? Why do we need to take time up in the meeting being told by the secretary or the chairperson of the meeting that so-and-so or such and such couldn't make it today? Going through the minutes of the meeting, page by page, the last meeting, page by page, item by item, waiting for somebody to call out in a rather pedantic way, sorry, there's a typo on page 3, or such and such said this, not that. For goodness sake, that should be done when the minutes came out, not waiting until the start of the following meeting. And matters arising from the minutes, which is a common item, why is that there? All it's doing is giving the opportunity for people to reopen discussions that were nailed down at the last meeting. So not only does those 3 items waste time, but they actually reward people arriving late, because they know there is nothing of any consequence that's going to go on for the first 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes. I did actually once observe a health board meeting in Wales where matters arising finished 45 minutes after the meeting had started. So it took 45 minutes to get through the first 3 items. Is it any wonder that busy clinicians, and other health professionals for that matter, made the judgment call that I'll either skip the meeting altogether or I'll arrive when I've finished what I was doing before. I'm not going to rush, because nothing of any consequence will happen in that first few minutes. If you then look at the other items in the middle of that agenda, you will see that they are one-liners. They are 2-word or 3-word phrases. They don't communicate clarity of purpose. There's no supporting information. There's no explanation as to why those items are on the agenda or what I'm expected to do in preparation for the meeting. And I've already talked about those issues before. You'll also see that some of the more crunchy issues are actually right at the bottom of the agenda, just at the time that people are beginning to lose the will to live or are shuffling their papers and wanting to get out of the room. Now, if you're going to put a contentious item late on the agenda in order to rush it through, then shame on you. But more often than not, these agendas are just lazily put together. They may even be a standard template so that the meeting items are the same month after month after month. But if you put a contentious issue on at the end, you will either get a deferral to next time, or you will get a hasty, bad decision. And the final piece of mess or problem with this sort of agenda is that ubiquitous item, any other business. I have no idea how anybody can plan and manage a meeting if you are going to add at the end of the meeting an opportunity for people to ambush it with all sorts of personal agendas. Take it off the agenda. If people have an issue that they need to raise, it should either be on the agenda in its own right, or they should announce it at the start, so that you are then, if you're in charge of the meeting, you are then able to modify the remainder of the session to incorporate those urgent items. To wait until everybody's almost out of the door to start opening it up for anything and everything people can think of it's a problem with the agenda, but it's also an example of poor chairmanship. So if that agenda is so bad, and for the moment you need to take my word for it, that agenda style is responsible for the vast majority of poor meetings, then what can I do instead?